The primaries are always controlled by the bloodlines. And this is how you can maybe there make a very good case for the demonic, because the demonic is always interested in human blood, always. So I see these inoculations as being demonic because they are this constitutes an assault on the human blood, a tremendous assault. The Morgellons, which was falling from the air and getting into the water and soil and things, that was one thing. And then we're breathing it in, it's going inside us. That was sort of laying a matrix. Yeah, okay, he's got the thing in the back of his neck. Okay, yeah, that probably has decreased his humanity somewhat. But he is basically still human. And he stands for a very tribal looking humanity, right? How those people are grooving and, in the Zion, the city, you see how the Freemasons are feeding us these images of what they think humanity is. That's humanity. We're just all mechanics.
Let's say that somehow the elites of the world are able to clone the human experience, emotion, and consciousness in which can be imprinted into machines and highly advanced artificial intelligence and other means. How might the development of emotionally intelligent artificial machines impact society when it comes to the jobs being replaced by this technology? Will we humans ever be able to coincide in an AI George Orwellian dystopian future? Or will we be phased out by these puppet masters?
I've got news for you. I think you're already seeing it. If you watch TV news at all and see these Washingtonians giving speeches like the guy in the mask that's supposedly the president, they are now putting into the bodies, into the blood, little tiny nano-sized computer parts. We see routers, we see circuit boards, we see all the different things that you would see in a computer.
Do you want to receive extra content that's not viewed anywhere else? Support Beyond the Forbidden on Patreon to receive plus content that is only exclusive to members of Beyond the Forbidden. Content like the full 2-hour podcast, bonus shows, full-length video interviews, behind-the-scenes footage with guests, and much more. So what do you have to lose? Go to patreon.com/Beyond the Forbidden. That's patreon.com/Beyond the Forbidden and become a member of Beyond the Forbidden for just $5 a month. And also check the description for the links. All right, welcome to Beyond the Forbidden. Today on the show, I got somebody I've been following for a long time. She woke me up to a lot of this transhumanism, artificial intelligence, everything else under the sun. She has many books, geoengineered transhumanism, chemtrails harp in the full spectrum dominance of Earth under an ionized sky. The list goes on. And I'm very grateful and thankful to have you on the show. Welcome to the show, Elana. How you doing?
All right, Michael. Thanks for finally having me.
It's been on and off battle for, like I told you before the show, for several years now, and a lot of that was on my end with just scheduling conflicts. But yeah, let's go ahead and throw everything out in the beginning. Elana, like your website, social medias, where you want people to buy your books. Of course, Amazon is always, you can just search your name, but just throw everything out in the beginning for everybody.
Will do. And I am Elana Freeland. I'm a writer, and I've done a lot of things in my life. I'm a holdover from the 60s generation, still alive, still political, still working for humanity, which is the 60s I knew. The idea that it was all sex, drugs, and rock and roll, according to Time magazine, is just not true. It was high ideals and searching for the truth and abandoning the establishment in order to go back to the land and only take jobs that were non-corporate. That was the generation I was in. So I'm still kind of on that road. And the books I've written, I started all this when I was writing a series dedicated to the murder of John F. Kennedy, because I had tea with him in the Rose Garden when I was 16 years old. I was at Girls Nation, I think Bill Clinton was there as well. He often talked about being at Boys Nation that summer. I had to give speeches after Kennedy was murdered in Dallas, speeches to the civic groups that had paid for my trip to Washington. And it was a real shock to me that the room was filled with sobbing Americans and women running out of the room, just completely overwhelmed. So that was when I politically came of age. And now I find myself 13 years into writing these geoengineering books, which is kind of it's odd. I never would have thought of that. But of course, we didn't even have the term geoengineering back just a few years ago. We had the term chemtrails. We heard about HAARP, the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Project up in Gakona, Alaska, with the great acronym. But we really didn't understand anything about it. And now I understand a whole lot about it. If there are those listeners who want to read about this giant elephant in the living room that everything else is attached to, then they can go and buy my books, on Evil Amazon. But you can also get everything I've written at a little tiny bookstore in Seattle, Washington, called the Rudolph Steiner Bookstore. And Frank is dedicated to getting my work out. I really appreciate him. So you would just go on the internet and do a search for Rudolph Steiner Bookstore, Seattle, Washington, and you should be able to find it quite easily. I also have a website which is done for free by a fantastic woman, my web mistress, and that's at elanafreeland.com. And there you'll see how multidimensional my life has been. But then, hey, I'm 75 years old now, and I have lived an amazing life in an amazing time. And everyone listening to this show, this is an amazing time. And instead of feeling fear and the wish for the past, one should feel fortunate to be here at such a huge crossroads for humanity. And that's kind of where I want to get to with the third book I wrote, Geoengineered Transhumanism, how the environment has been weaponized by chemicals, electromagnetism, and nanotechnology for synthetic biology. I know it's a mouthful, and believe me, the book is pretty big. It's not as big as the Bible, but pretty close. I tied together 5 subjects that normally are all treated separately in order for you to see how our environment has been used against the natural human being in preparation for the construction of a transhuman. And that's exactly what's going on now and has been for the last 3 years.
Well said. And just for everybody that's listening, I want to thank everybody that's following the Facebook page. We're almost at 200,000. Need 25 more to go. Thank you very much. And go to patreon.com/Beyond Forbidden. Become a member over there. And Elana, you've been doing this for a while. So what has kept that spark, that drive, that fire within your spirit, within your whole being to push forward and to try to expose a lot of this darkness in the world? Because it seemed like over the years, so I've been following you for a while. I don't know. I don't want to speculate. It's at least 10 years, maybe, or longer.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems like you've gotten stronger over the years. Like, well, what's that spark? Like, what's that fire in the deep part of your belly that keeps pushing forward?
Well, good question. I'm on a mission. Not everybody is given a mission to do. I realize that. I don't expect other people to be on my mission, but I definitely feel compelled to give all my gifts, all my talents, which include teaching, storytelling, writing. I have these fantastic abilities that when I was a young woman, I thought I was going to be a great writer. And I read all the classics. I read all the writers that I admired. I went to Paris in order to see where Henry Miller and Anais Nin and Lawrence Durrell had done their writing on the left bank. I mean, I was sure I was going to be one of those great fiction writers of my time. Instead, I have ended up writing books about the secret machinations that have really brought this country low after John Kennedy's assassination. That's my Sub Rosa America, a deep state history series of 4 books, 1,300 pages. Couldn't write fast enough when I was writing it, about what has happened here since 1970, since even before then, when World War II ended. A whole lot of stuff happened then that set us on a certain road. So, when I ended up writing about chemtrails, that was because I met the scientist, Clifford Carnicom, who was working on his own shoestring budget after noticing what was being laid in the once beautiful blue skies of northern New Mexico. And I met him at a breakfast, and we put our heads together, and I began to look under his microscope. I'd had biology in my undergrad, and I was very interested. He had a test of the red wine test, it's called. You'd still find it on the internet, in order to see what was inside your body, even after you'd cleaned your mouth really well, and then you slosh this red wine around for 3 minutes and then spit it into a clean dish, and you see this creature crawling across the bottom of the glass. Morgellons, we know it as. And he was studying that. We did blood samples. I could see that this Morgellons creature was sucking all the iron out of my red blood cells right there under the microscope. So I got serious right away, because I realized that if this was being laid in the jet trails overhead, in the atmosphere, it was transforming the atmosphere, and it was also transforming us, because we were breathing all this stuff in without knowing we were breathing it in, because it was on a nano scale, and I didn't even know about a nanoscale. I thought the smallest thing was a micron, but not so. The nanotechnology revolution happened in the 1990s, very quietly, and we were not really informed in our corporate controlled mainstream media about this technology. But we have all breathed it in. Therefore, I knew that this Morgellons creature which appeared to be bioengineered, was not natural, that it had the capability to go beyond the blood-brain barrier. Once I realized that it wasn't going to stay just in the body and housed in the tissues, I realized that this was, mind control, MK Ultra biology style, but also that this indicated the control that the deep state, I already had that term from Peter Dale Scott, Professor Peter Dale Scott, a great man, that the deep state had big ambitions, not just to control the planet, not just to control all the money and all the things that make our lives where we stay low and are milked, but that they really wanted to control the human brain, and I assumed the human soul. Of course, I know we have a soul, and I feel I am responsible for my soul, and that mission that I feel is that I am also responsible to give back to humanity what being human has given me, in order to save our future as free will human beings who were created by the divine to be divine in a mixed bag world that requires a lot of skill, a lot of attention, a lot of love, in order to bring ourselves to our highest point of incarnation would be how I'd say it. So that's what I've been doing, and it more than keeps me going. I mean, I'm on a mission from God, you could say, and it definitely gives me tremendous energy and courage, because a lot of people think, oh, Elana, you're just in so much danger, and yes, I am attacked at times electromagnetically, but something is protecting me so that I can continue to just lay out what this technology I have studied is all about, so that people can make their own decisions.
And well said. And with these technologies, first off, this note that I wrote down, because I have a lot of notes. But before I mention it, statement/question, it was the 666 words in the document. When I got finished with this note, it was 6. Isn't that weird?
That is weird.
Isn't that weird? But here, and I don't always look at how many words. It's just somehow it pops up. But anyways, but with these technologies, Elana, one thing that's aggravating is with life extension, it already exists and it's pretty much successful, especially with a certain few. Just look at some of the New World Order elites, like David Rockefeller. He lived to 101 at his time of death. Father Bush, 94 at his time of death. George Soros is 92 and still kicking. Queen Elizabeth II was 96 time of her death. Zbigniew Brzezinski, he's 89 at the time of his death. Henry Kissinger will be 100 years old, I think, next month. And these are just a tiny few, right? And of these elites. So you mean to tell me that the majority of the elites in the past up until modern day don't die of things like cancer, heart attack, strokes, and other means that majority of us normal people do? Something just doesn't add up, Elana.
No, they have the antidotes for one thing, always. I learned that back in the 80s when AIDS came out, and I began to study the headlines in newspapers as to what this really was. And then I chanced upon a group called HEAL, HEAL. I went to their meeting and learned a tremendous amount from some biochemists who were speaking there about how this complete AIDS thing had been created by the military. A lot of it at Fort Detrick, Maryland, which is the place of nemesis. But as far as all those elites who live a long life, I definitely know it is because what I said, they have the antidotes for themselves. Probably they have the med beds that we keep hearing about. Like the med bed in the movie Elysium that came out several years ago, as a pre-programming. But the main thing I think of is the terrible child trafficking going on that has produced a huge industry of adrenochrome. And these elites are drinking that adrenochrome in order to stay young. I know that's what happens. That's what happens in Hollywood. It happens everywhere someone has a big pile of money. Their immortality, their long lives, are on the backs of small children and babies that they milk after giving them torture, because the adrenaline that they need, they have to milk it out of them with fear and terror. So, I have no, obviously, I have no envy of their long lives, because
and it gets kind of emotional too, because I just had my first child. Me and my wife had our first child.
Yeah.
And my eyes are almost watering up now just to think that these evil sons of what just could do that.
That's right.
I will go through the pits of hell to expose you. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, and they look at us like cattle, and we're the farm, and they can have what they want because they let us have a few of their little resources while they're milking us in every way, shape, and form. But I just want to be clear that what I'm bringing today about the transhumanism that's going on is not about altering people for immortality. It's much more about the control over the human soul, much more about that. And to me, they can have their immortality, but not at the expense of new human beings, small children coming into the planet that we're supposed to be taking care of. And it is an unpleasant topic. I totally know that. But I was an abused child. And so I know what it can do to you if you don't face up and really dig in and figure out how could that have happened and what can I do about it now? So to me, I on my websites, I only have one site left on Facebook. They've thrown two of my sites out. And then I also post at gab.com group page every morning. But I certainly do geoengineering, which is very, very important. But I also
it all ties in together, correct?
It all ties in together because it's like the geoengineering. The wrong finger is on the button for running all of these weather, these things that you're told are climate change and global warming. That is not that's the cover story. That is not what this is about. This is actual geoengineered weather, period. There is, to my knowledge, for example, no natural weather that you will ever see. It's all been tweaked and tampered with in order to produce often terrible cyclones, tornadoes, earthquakes, in order to create disaster. What Naomi Klein, I think, had coined the term disaster capitalism. And that's what this all is. It's also a way to muscle nations into behaving in a certain way that the deep state has decided they should behave in. This everybody thinks, oh, this is such bad news. It used to be better. It used to be better. Well, it used to be better in the sense that it wasn't in our face. It was definitely going on what I call sub rosa. That's why I titled my book Sub Rosa America.
Mm-hmm.
Sub rosa means under the radar. You're not going to see it. It's going to be lied about. It's going to be covered over with, entertainment, fast downloads, cool. All these things that we've been distracted by until we start to get a little older. And then we realize, wow, I'm totally depressed. And I think I'll go get some antidepressants for that.
It's almost like a pile of horse manure that they have coated in this gold, pretty looking, they're giving us crap.
Yeah.
But they present it to where we love it, we need it, and all, and to where we're dependent upon this technology,
You just reminded me with your reference to Apollo, the Hercules story I read as a kid, where he has to shovel out the shit in the Auguran stables. And these are like giant horses, and there's just lots of stuff he has to do. So, it's a task. And in a way, that's my task. I'm in the stables, shoveling that stuff and giving it a name and really letting people know that all of this is intentional. We know politics are intentional. We know that a lot of events are orchestrated. We know a lot of people are making lots of bucks off of disasters that people have to wade through. But do we realize that the intentionality of what's going on, for example, the last 3 years with the inoculations, that this was all planned back in the 70s? This was planned way back. And yes, it's been documented, but you're not going to hear about it on CBS, NBC, ABC News. You're not going to read about it in the New York Times. You're going to have to hear it as if it were a rumor from some unproven alternative press or some guy that shows up. And you're going to have to build another capacity in yourself, which I think Paul in the New Testament calls discernment. And discernment is not the kind where you've got a good intellect and you can read, the New York Times and you can figure out what the article's saying. No, the discernment comes when you sense there's more to this story, but it's not there. You sense something has been changed in the story, but it's not there. So you now have to teach yourself to read between the lines. First thing you look at is who paid for this? Who paid for this news to come out? Follow the money. That's, we all know that. But do we practice it? No, we usually jump right into our feelings. I like this. I don't like this. And really, I often am quite rude and say to people, well, I don't care that you don't like it. That's not my job to make you like it. It's my job to tell you what's going down, and then your job to figure out, am I going to do anything about this? Or am I going to just forget it as fast as I can and turn on the boob tube and lose myself in some sitcom? It's not my job. And exactly. I do feel that the bad boy, I call them the bad boys, the bad boy side, they use this too. Have you noticed how before they do something that's going to be a real problem for some people, quite a few people, they will tell you that it's coming. And that's sort of a rule that they have to follow, especially if they're involved in the occult. They have to tell the victim what they're planning to do, because then when maybe the victim will do something to save themselves. And then that's food for thought for the bad boys. But usually what happens is we're told, we don't see any way that we can do anything about it. So we immediately become complicit to what they're doing because we don't do anything. This is what happened with the Kennedy assassination. This is exactly what happened. Everybody knew that Lee Harvey Oswald had not done it. Everybody knew that he had been killed by Jack Ruby right away, boom, because Lee was remembering what his intelligence op had been, and he was going to talk. So they just got rid of him, boom. And yet, did it go on? Did the American people rise up and demand justice and never let it go until someone was finally held responsible? No, we let it go. This is probably the worst trait of America, which is unfortunately spoon-fed media that is all lies and subterfuge and fantasy and it's something that you know the difference between yourself in high school and yourself now. You've got a child, you've got a wife, you've got responsibilities, you've got obligations. Now you've got to step up to the plate. You got to step up to the plate. It's not time to sit around and smoke a J and kick back or get drunk or go start an affair with someone. All that is all the adolescence, if you did it that way, sadly. But now, hey, it's adulthood, and wow, things get serious. There's either bread on the table and money in the account, or there isn't. So to me, that's what is going on now, is we've all been through something really intense the last 3 years. And it's been crazy because we were not prepared. We could have seen it coming had we been looking in that direction, which I was. So I was not surprised. I was actually kind of pleased, believe it or not, that the powers that be were now more out in the open than I've ever seen them. I had to dig much less. In fact, I began to wonder if there'd be any conspiracy theories left for people to complain about, because everything's out right in front of your face now.
It is, especially if you know where to look. It's there.
Well, that's
it's
the
all
key,
there.
isn't it? If you don't know how to look, then you're just going to be like a puppet. You're just going to be maybe a zombie puppet. I don't know. But you've got to know how to look. And if you haven't been paying attention and you've been off on your own little fantasy world, this has got to be tough, because this is just the beginning. This isn't over.
Mhm.
This is just the beginning. So to me, the geoengineering part is about trying to teach people to not go to hospitals and doctors anymore. Just dump them, get rid of them, because we can't trust that system anymore. We have learned that. We have seen it now. We've seen, yes, we have a handful of good doctors and a handful of good researchers and people telling the truth, people looking through their microscopes, telling what they're seeing. But in general, I would say that the medical institutions of this country are geared to the American Medical Association objectives. And the AMA, I know it quite well. I've studied quite a bit about it. It is like a brotherhood. And they make sure that doctors are trained in this way and not aware of this way. So, for example, are they aware of Chinese medicine? Do they study all the different medical ways of the world and how they've worked or haven't worked and what's worked in them and what we could bring into Western allopathic medicine? No. All that happens is most of doctors and hospitals are on the take from Big Pharma cartel. And it is a cartel. It's a drug cartel. It may not be run by Mexican honchos, but it is run by honchos who are a drug cartel. And so what I want people to know about the geoengineering is that we're breathing in all this nanotechnology that's being laid on purpose to work as a corollary to what's going in people's arms. It's still big pharma. Those chemicals that are being laid by those jets, that's still big pharma. What's going in the arm, that's big pharma. What's going to happen to you after you have some sort of ailments from the jab, that's big pharma. So you don't need to be a rocket scientist to figure out that one of the first things you need to do is to wean yourself from a system dedicated to keeping you sick over as long a period of time as possible. And that's the medical system of the West. And so, this requires some study. You're looking into things. You're listening to people that are being called conspiracy theorists. You're reading maybe some ancient books on Chinese medicine, whatever it is. Just that you go back to the homeopathy, to the folk medicine of your grandparents or your great-grandparents or your great-great-grandparents, where you're learning how to use natural things from Mother Nature as to how to heal and not to fall prey to fear, particularly through your children, because it's very easy. The child has a fever, it might be 106, got to run to the doctor. Well, maybe not. Maybe you can teach yourselves to do the healing. And another reason to do that is so that you don't have medical records that the bad boys can use against you as we enter this latest World Health Organization Gestapo that's going to be taking over different nations. So yes, we can hope that maybe someone will get us out of this and that will all end and the bad guys will go to jail. But you know what? I'm not going to hold my breath, because this deep state has been entrenched for my entire life. My entire life. I was born in 1947, the year that the National Security Act was brought into being. Bad idea. Bad idea. Everything's secret here. So all the guys who love
I don't mean to interrupt, Elana, but this technology, you've been covering several things, but you're talking about geoengineering and chemtrails in the sky, but this technology's been going way before even 1947, the National Security Act.
and I like to share. I know a lot of people probably have seen this or not, but this was from the 1920s, I believe. Can you see that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They call that a smoke screen, but that looks just very
Oh yeah.
similar
That's
to a
chemical.
chemtrail. You know what I mean?
Well,
This
and
technology's been going on for a long time.
you could go back to World War I, which was a chemical war, had wiped out an entire generation of European youth, and that was run by Big Pharma. That's how old Big Pharma is. It goes back to the 19th century. So no, I know, but I love that shot, by the way. That is one area. Now just think, this technology that I'm talking about is planetary. It's over the whole planet. Because not because all nations have signed on some terrible contract with the United States. It's because the atmosphere is one big bubble. So whatever the US is doing from the stratosphere, and it's coming down into the troposphere, whatever they're doing, it's going all around the earth. So what other nations have been doing very quietly, admittedly, because of the 2015 UN thing, where we signed on the dotted line for carbon credits, blaming carbons. I mean, that makes no sense to me, because carbon is part of life. So everybody knows about this technology, and they're developing their own defense of it by doing it themselves. So what I think, I guess I look at it, Michael, as being the first thing we have to do is to know what it is. Otherwise, all the different ways that they're talking about it in the press and mentioning it here and there, which is very rare, it sounds like it's going to solve all our problems for global warming and climate change, when it is creating all of that. It's creating. Yes, it does warm the atmosphere. These are ionospheric heaters that are full on 24/7 pulsing frequencies at the planet that affect our brain and affect our mood and affect our behavior. That's going on right now. That's been going on, I would guess, for about the last 20 years. So yeah, everything started a long time ago, but this program that I write about, it's called Project Cloverleaf. I mean, I'm sure now they've got 20 names for it that, are this, that, and the other parts as it's compartmentalized. But this Cloverleaf is highly classified. So when you go to research, like I do, before I'm writing the books, I have to go all over the place in order to see. And then I read something and I have to have some sort of backlog to understand what the real context of this is. It isn't just that you're reading about carbons. Well, what is the context of the carbons? How about the nanocarbon scale? And so, that's why it's fascinating that if you read my books in order, from Chemtrails HARP to Under an Ionized Sky to Geoengineered Transhumanism, you would definitely see a progression that I'm learning as I go.
You connect everything together perfectly, like a jigsaw puzzle, and everything connects.
No. Yeah. And when you're dealing with classified projects, it's really like that, because you'll see some things very clearly that are more on the surface. And then you'll write about those and you go, yeah, okay, good. But wait a minute, I'm not done, because there's something under this. There's something behind it. And I was fortunate enough to have one of those amazing human beings help me write that second book, Under an Ionized Sky. And that was Billy Hayes. Billy Hayes had worked for the CIA, believe it or not, since he was 8 years old. His father was CIA, and he had no choice in the matter. So he was sent to grade schools and high schools that were run by the CIA and pulled him out every day to program him. And they programmed him in electromagnetics, so that when I was writing the second book, which he said I had to write, he was able to be my dictionary and library all in one, because all I had to say to him was, I really don't quite understand how this works. And he would boom, and he would just recite chapter and verse from his programming. So he made good use of that MK Ultra programming, but his life was very, very tough because people controlled him all the way through. There was no freedom. And so, I love Billy. He died last year. And this next book that I'm writing for a publisher right now will be dedicated to him. So you see how, it's sort of a collage thing. My mind works in multiple ways. I'm a geek. I'm an intellectual. But the way my mind works, I have a great imagination. So I can build massive pictures in my mind and study them. I can go all the way around them and look at them. I think they call that eidetic memory. I don't know, but I have that. I've had that capacity. That's how I got through college and made A's. I do a lot of memorizing before I walked into the exam, and I could see whole pages in front of me.
I can do that too, Elana. I can do that too, Elana. But my problem is I can't put it on pen and paper. You know what I mean? Well, in a book format.
Well, if you took tests, though,
yeah,
you could do it in a test.
Oh, yeah.
No, I've been a writer since I was 8, so a long time. But I get better and better as I do it more and more. And that's true for everybody. It's like pumping iron.
Yeah.
You're not going to get those muscles if you only do it every other week.
Unless you have help with AI and artificial intelligence and cloning and merging with the machines and all that,
Well, that's really scary stuff.
But with these technologies, Elana, that we've been talking about, and we're just going to keep diving deeper and deeper within this interview. But, well, first off, I interview not just conspiracies. I do paranormal people on the show, the occult, ancient mysteries. A lot of it ties in together, and over the years, since I've been doing interviews, since 2009, 2010 ish, I've come to the conclusion, not just me, I'm basing my conclusion off a lot of people's work and research, of course, that, and my own personal research, that there is some type of shadow force or something in this world. You can call it demonic, you can call it satanic, evil. You can call it evil, you could call it an alien, you can call it whatever you want to call it. But do you think, with that being said, do you think that the reason for this great technological leap the past 100 years is due to this unseen non-human shadow force, whatever it is, that manipulates society from the shadows? And if so, maybe one reason the shadow force is possibly helping with this burst in technology is because the shadow force needs us to be their worker bees and work as a collective, so that one day we can eventually merge with the machines and help this shadow force finally leave finally have the technology to leave this prison planet. And they obviously are creating some type of prison planet here, the elites that are probably possessed by something. And the reason for them wanting to us to merge with the machines and the transhuman artificial intelligence is so that we can survive in space, possibly, I'm just theorizing, and be their slaves off planet. Speculating, of course. They know if we merge with the machines, we'll be the perfect slave species that can survive the vastness of space.
A lot of true ideas in that.
A lot of it is speculation, of course, but there's something going on here. And back to the beginning of that statement question, and I've asked that before in a couple other interviews, but there's something with this burst in technology, specifically the past 100, 120 years or so, roughly. And with this, whatever this force is, you can call it aliens, you can call it demonic possession, whatever it is, there's something that's possessing certain elite factions in the world that are pushing us towards something. And they want us to be a collective, be like hive mentality. Why are they pushing us towards? Well, my mind's getting scrambled. You know what I mean? Like,
it's great questions, and there are many approaches to the answers. Now, I'm a student of Rudolf Steiner, have been for 45 or so years, and I like him because he's an occultist, but he had an experience of Christ when he was 37 years old, and it completely transformed him. I had an experience of Christ in a college classroom, believe it or not, when I was 25, and it completely transformed me over the next several years. So with Steiner, what he says is, and he's not the only one. Almost every occultist, if you can find, like you can read the Vedas. The Vedas are thousands of years old. And when you read the Vedas, you will see what I'm going to say now. I mean, what's missing for most people who import aliens in particular is they don't see the overarching drama of the human being incarnating, dying, excarnating, incarnating, dying, excarnating. Each lifetime gives a whole other set of experiences to the developing human consciousness in that one male or female body, and we digest it, and we keep growing as one day follows the next. We have time. Time can help us in that, and slowly we develop. So when you're talking about, for example, the technology, had it ever occurred to you that this was the reason that President Kennedy gave what is the most famous to me and the most important speech he gave, which was the speech about secret societies? Secret societies are our main problem. And how long have secret societies been around? Oh, thousands of years. Almost wherever human beings gather who feel special or have special talents, they're going to form like maybe we think of it as a club. But if it has occult capabilities, extra sensory perception, for example, or many or great vast amounts of money, and technological skill. If those people are in a secret society, then often what happens is the secret society will have a great deal of influence over this very big planet, but it's really not that big of a planet as we begin to feel now. I mean, how many billions of people have been now inoculated? So if you think of the secret societies, they sat on a lot of ancient technology through their wars, through disasters, creating disasters over certain countries, because, weather warfare has been done before, just not on an entirely 24/7 planetary level like it is now. But it's been done over different nations, over different regions, over different people. So they were able to steal these technologies. The last one I remember them stealing was when we entered Baghdad in 2003, I think it was.
Yeah, 3.
And right away, the headlines began screaming that people were stealing artifacts from the museum and and I said to myself, oh, that's the secret societies. They're in there taking what they want. And that's probably one of the reasons that we even attacked Iraq. I mean,
they show you in movies like Monuments Men, I believe. That's predictive programming. You know what I mean? There's something going on there. Yeah, for sure.
So when you say that, to you, from your vantage point, without the history of these secret societies, from your vantage point, it looks like, wow, all this technology is just burgeoning from out of nowhere. I mean, it's just, it must be some off-planet intelligence that's wanting this to happen. No, not it. Non-human intelligence could be involved, but it's really the secret societies that are highly skilled. I mean, these are the top black magicians, and not the 32nd degree Freemason, for example. The 32nd degree Freemason hasn't taken that next step to the 33rd degree. It's the 33rd degree when they will then be subject to a whole other ball game.
Hey guys, Michael James with Beyond the Forbidden. If you enjoyed this interview with Elana Freeland, you will definitely enjoy the second part of this interview. To watch the second part of this interview, just head on over to patreon.com/Beyond the Forbidden. That's patreon.com/Beyond the Forbidden, and become a member of Beyond the Forbidden for just $5 a month. Check the description for the links.